I remember walking with my grandpa up the road when I was just a little girl with my hand in his. I remember standing there with him and him standing, and he put both hands on his cane and he looked at me. And he looked up at the blue sky and he looked around and he looked at the hills, and there was a sense of satisfaction on his face, just that I really can't describe. And he was not just seeing it, he was actually almost drinking it in. Even as a little girl, I knew that I was witnessing something that was very powerful. That was an important day for me. I saw the peace and the contentment on his face, and I felt that.
But I remember when they came to strip our property, my pap and his brother went up to up in the mountains to where the bulldozer was coming to, and of course they had guns, I guess, you know, and they went right up there and told them not to come on their property.
The nasty thing about it was the guy came and he said, we give you 50 cents a foot for your property, and we're going to get the coal and all that stuff. There was not much to be done about it, except some people around that still remembered World War II and some action they took, you know, and their experiences. So they just decided to take it into their own hands. They got after old shotguns, and they hid in the dark, and they put the lead to them.
The people in the industry, in the coal industry, seem to put getting the coal out over anything else, over either people's lives or the mountains.
I think people here in the mountains, I think, have an amazingly powerful connection to the land. And the times that I've lived other places, it's always been weird to me, you know, if you live in the suburbs, you have a very different relationship to the idea of land and what that means to you than if you grew up in, you know, Eastern Kentucky. It's a different place in a lot of ways, in a wonderful way, I think. People say, like, to be born in the mountains is to be born with a third parent, and that there's this sense of safety and security that these mountains give you that you're never going to find anywhere else. And so when you have an economy that requires you to destroy the thing that gives you that deep sense of security, that's really scary.
See, in Kentucky at that time, until 1989, really, if you had sold your coal rights, then the Kentucky law and the Kentucky courts interpreted that to mean that the company could go in and could strip your land whether you wanted them to or not. So that's what was happening a lot of places. People said, we don't want our land stripped, and they said, too bad. And, you know, graveyards were shoved down the hills, and people's garden, I mean, people had no control over their land.
You know, when the bullets were flying on Clear Creek, I mean, nobody knew who was going to get killed. Nobody knew whose house was going to be blown up, and it was really that serious.
All up and down this creek that happened to people. At that time in our history, I really think that that's about the only way that it was prevented, was with the threat of violence, as bad as I hate to say it. That's just, that seemed to be the only thing that the coal companies understood.
We sat in front of dozers. It was not an unusual thing. I'm the oldest of 9, and my mother was not a bit bashful about loading up all 9 kids and taking them and plopping them down in front of a dozer. We went over there and we faced hundreds of thugs. They brought carload after carloads, van loads of people in here from all over the place. My sister and me went back off to get help, and they threatened to kill us, tried to run over us. When you dealt with these people and their big companies that it was not something that they took lightly. But I never realized how deadly serious they were.
Alice Slone, she believed in protecting the land and the water and the animals, anything environmental, not just land.
So if a teacher sent some kids to her to ask to help identify plants or something, she'd drop everything she had and go immediately and work with the kids and show them things and tell them what these plants did and all kinds of things. She just loved the earth.
Miss Slone and some people had organized a group called Save the Land and People. Miss Slone was very involved in that group, and really, when you talked to her, you knew that saving these mountains was more than just a passing thought. It was a passion. She loved this area. She loved the hills. She loved the people. She was really determined to do what she could do, I think, to try to preserve it.
It was destroying their land and its slides, and you know, they lived off the land, and it was dear to them. It was part of their very heart and existence. So they didn't want to see it destroyed. Somebody suggested they save the land, and I guess I was the one adding the people. If the land was destroyed, the people were destroyed. So it included the two. I think that's the way I reasoned. One woman weepingly said she had to sit there and watch her baby's coffin being rolled over the hill. The bulldozer went across the hill, and she begged them not to go through the graveyard and push her baby. And she said, looked out, she looked up there, and there was the baby's coffin come rolling down the hill. And one man said, wouldn't go through and push it off. And the other man said, hell, I will. And he took the bulldozer right on through. And there came the coffin rolling down the hill. And she sitting on the porch watching it.
The mountain back of the school, Adam. She stayed in her office was in the sunroom there at the cabin, and she'd look out over Adam. She said that was her strength. That's why it was really, really, really devastating to her to see the awful scars on the mountains of strip mining. It hurt her. And once when, during the strip mining days, she looked out and she saw bulldozers coming on Adam. And within a half an hour, there were probably 20 men with rifles out, and the bulldozers left, and so far, haven't been back.
I think the whole group of students that was at school during that period of time, the teachers, the leaders of this community looked toward Alice Slone for leadership and to point out the things that they could do to organize and help find ways to fight strip mining.
Every time that they stopped the coal trucks from running, every time we stopped a strip mine from operating that day, every time that we appeared on the TV, or you went to Washington, Mom and several people went to Washington and testified at hearings up there on strip mining. I think that without all of that, they would have still been doing what they were doing when we first came back down here, and that is absolutely destroying everything.
If you don't stand up, and if you don't raise your voice, then you're just letting them have it. And even if you know that it may not ever make a difference to them, it makes a huge difference to you with being able to live with yourself to say, you know, I did everything I could. It's less about them hearing you, but that you know you spoke what you needed to say.